Well, hello, friend, and welcome to another episode of Van Life Living in New York. Welcome to another one of my secret places. I'm in the garage. I have a lot of them. I was in my secret place earlier when what I'm going to talk about came to me. And it's something that Christian men aren't going to want to think about that aren't abiding in the law. But let me ask you a question, friend. If a Christian man goes out and has a one-night stand with a woman and she gets pregnant and aborts her child, is that man guilty of murder? Is Satan going to accuse you of that on the last day? And if Christ is your judge, what's going to be the answer? These are some questions, see? Because when you start spending time in the Spirit with God, he starts giving you questions and answers questions, and that's the reason Jesus said spend a lot of time in your secret place. So I do spend a lot of time in my secret place because he tells me I'm supposed to talk about the things that he gives me, right? And so then the next question is, if you were a person that has now heard what I said and you were doing it before and you never thought about it, so if you go do it now, are you more accountable than before now that somebody brought it up to you? So when you understand that Jesus only held off judgment for 2,000 years because he was waiting for the word to be spread. And it's spread throughout the world now, friend, and every one of you have the ability to have a red letter edition of the Bible if you want. So we're really accountable for the things we say and do because we have the words of Christ. Now, if you're not Christian, you don't believe in Christianity, well, that's a different thing, but a Christian should have been reading Jesus all along, right? If he's the Word made flesh, well then, and he said that if you don't eat his Word, which is his flesh, and drink his Spirit, which is his blood, that you'd by no means enter the kingdom, well then, you should be doing that, right? So, as always, I'm bringing these things up because, well, this is what my Father gives me, right? The deal was, I wanted the truth, and he had to tell him I made this agreement, and so I give you the truth, but I have to give it to you, whatever he gives to me, and you can imagine that doesn't make me very popular when I come up with these things that he gives me in meditation about, like Christian men having accountability for murder if they're going to let people go abort their children. And I'm not saying that you should be out trying to stop the woman that did it. I'm saying that if you're a Christian and you're abiding in the law, then you're not going to be out sleeping with a woman before you marry her anyway, right? So these are just facts of if you're really trying to be like Christ, because Jesus did say that, call no man teacher, I'm your teacher, right? And then he said a student is not greater than his teacher. It's enough to be like him. So if you're trying to be like him, surely because he told you to go spend time in your secret place, that you're doing it. And not only that, but he got up and sought the kingdom first every day. And then he also went out into lonely places often to seek communion with the Father, right? So should we not do the same since we're supposed to be students that are like our teacher? And if we're not his disciples and we don't want to be like him, why would he want us in his kingdom? Right? So there's a whole thing going on that the church isn't talking about. The Pharisees love to glorify themselves. Friend, you don't have, if you got a red letter edition of the Bible, you can go read it and define it for yourself. If I'm not helpful, you don't need to listen to me, right? Because I'm not your teacher. I'm just telling you the things that the Father shows me, because this is what I'm not this person that goes around defining Scripture I don't get. My Father gives me the things Jesus said and what he meant. And you don't have to believe it, but you do have to believe every word Jesus said. So I really do recommend at this hour that you're getting a red letter edition of the Bible and reading what Jesus said and read, because you are going to be accountable for what he said at the end of the age, regardless of whether you went to church or not. Your Pharisee isn't going to be responsible. You are. You have the word. If you've got a Bible, you've got his words. Don't read Paul. Don't read Moses. Go get to know Jesus. He said, if you know me, you know my Father. And then when you get to know my Father, you'll really know me. So there's going to be accountability on whether you really know him at the end of the age if you want to enter his kingdom. And if not, then you're going to stay here and ride through hell with everybody else because you're not in the spirit of love. Because if you love a woman, you wouldn't sleep with her knowing that you might put her in a position where she's going to have to decide whether to murder the child or marry you when she wasn't in love with you to begin with. That's not much of a choice, is it, friend? So an atheist, I get why they do it, and they don't believe there's any consequences to their actions. But a Christian, on the other hand, friend, should be thinking about what they're thinking about, because if you don't think Satan's going to be standing you on trial with all of the things that I've been telling you, you just haven't been thinking about what you're thinking about. I mean, that's the reason he's so sly. Your adversarial thought in your head. It's a half-tongue wiggler, and it's always telling you half-truths. It tells you how good it's going to feel to go do these things and forget to tell you about how the woman feels from what you've done, or how the man feels if you're a woman trapping men, right? I mean, this goes both ways. You all have declared the sex is equal, so I've got no judgment one more for the other. I'm just bringing up facts. So if you're a woman and you're using these things, understand there's still going to be accountability at the end of the age. Why we've turned sex into a sport, well, I know why. I pretend like I don't, but I do. The corporations sell us everything on sex. Our kids are addicted to sex. I was addicted to sex before I was even old enough to supposed to even really know what it was. A friend of mine's dad had Playboys that he kept in a box, and we used to look at them when we were little kids. I started getting perversion way too young, and plus other things happened to me, and it's just a long story. But, there's consequences to the actions, and if you don't know that the porn is as easy to find on the internet as like the Home Depot website, then I don't know why you would think that they make it so hard to find it. I mean, you start putting sexual names to .com, and what do you think's going to happen, right? So, do you think your kids aren't going to be creative? One kid tells them a website, then all these websites are linked together. These are things to think about if you're trying to save your child a lot of trouble in the future. Because a lot of folks are just letting their kids play on these phones and the internet like there's no accountability, and there's going to be accountability. If we're going to be a nation that puts our children on Satan's altar, you can trust Valley of Gehenna is going to get a judgment, and it's going to be burned up. I'm not telling you anything you don't know, right? I'm telling you outright truth here, friend. These are the decisions we've been making as a people. And so there comes accountability with that. However, there are those that are out feeding the hungry, clothing the naked, visiting the sick in prison, and being mindful and doing the right thing. Well, Satan isn't going to have anything to accuse them for, is he? But I said this another time lately, and that is, I want you to understand that you're not getting judged like they grade you in school, where you're getting judged against the average of everyone else. Friend, when you stand in front of Christ, you're getting judged by the words that he spoke, not by what your neighbor did. So when you think, oh, I'm not that bad because my neighbor did that, understand it doesn't matter whether that doesn't get you into the kingdom, because that's not the way this works. So I want you to understand that Satan will deceive you into thinking that, oh, well, look, I'm not that bad because they're not that bad. Jesus said a slave to sin has no permanent place in the kingdom. So it's not that you're going to be perfect, but Jesus did say that a slave to sin has no permanent place in the kingdom. So if you're going to just outright intentionally allow other people to suffer from your actions for your selfishness, then there's a price for it. And Jesus did tell you there would be a debt for it at the end of the age. He told you he was going to throw you into prison and pay all that's due. And quite often, and this is what I used to do, friend, I'm just being laying this out honest for you. I used to look at the speck in your eye so I didn't have to look at the plank in my own. And that's how Satan kept me from really judging myself rightly and looking at Christ, was by going and looking at everybody else and going, well, they're doing that, so I'm not that bad, right? So that's not going to work at the end of the age, and you're getting close, friends. So you might want to really think about what it is you're thinking about. All right? Well, just know I love you because my Father loves you, and may God bless you and yours.